We turn to page 362 as we prepare for our Torah service to read out of Torah. Emma, as you know from the book of Genesis that your Torah portion comes out of, the Torah itself talks about generations, one generation to the next generation to the next generation, and very frequently we find these long genealogies of tracing our ancestors back further and further and further. There's no doubt from reading your Devar Torah that everybody's going to hear in a couple of minutes that indeed your ancestors have played a significant role in your life. And so I want you to imagine, as we're going to take this Torah and pass it down the generations, I want you to imagine that your grandparents, Ernest and Toby, and Emery and Blessy, are there with you, and they too will be passing the Torah down, just as from each of them to your parents, who ultimately will pass the Torah to you. So if you would rise, and Kenya and Adam, if you would be kind enough to pass the Torah to Emma.
Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki mitzion tetzei Torah, Udeva Adonai mirushalayim, Baruch shenatan Torah Torah, Baruch shenatan Torah Torah, Le'amo Yisrael b'kedushato, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Gadol Adonenu, Kadosh Shemo, Adonai Haiti, Unromema Shemo Yachdav Lecha Adonai, Hagedula v'hagevura v'hatiferet v'hanetzach v'hahor, Ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz, Ki chol b'shamayim u'va'aretz, Lecha Adonai hamamlacha v'hamid na'aseh lechol herosh.
I think they took it round the block. I'd like to invite Maya and Dylan to please help address the Torah.
Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
Now I'd like to invite Emma to share the significance of a Torah portion with us. Emma?
Good morning, family and friends. My Torah portion, Vayishlach, can be found in the book of Genesis. Genesis is the first book in the Torah. It talks about what was happening when Jacob returns to the Holy Land after a 20-year stay in Haran and sends representatives to Esau in hope of reuniting peacefully. But his messengers reported that his brother is on the warpath with 400 men. Jacob prepares for war, prays, and sends Esau a large gift consisting of hundreds of heads of livestock to appease him. But first, how did Jacob get here? What made Esau so upset? Well, before this parsha, Jacob tricked Esau out of his birthright, tricked his father into blessing him, and tricked his uncle Laban into giving him several hundred sheep. So Jacob was not the best kid. Jacob is very important to Judaism, yet he was not a good kid. How did that happen? So Jacob hears that Esau was coming with an army of 400 men. Jacob does not have an army of 400 men. He thinks that his brother Esau is still mad that he took his birthright, which is correct. I would be. What do you think he did? He prayed to God and sent gifts to Esau that included cattle and sheep. In preparation for war, Jacob protected his family by sending them across the river with an entourage. That night, a man came to Jacob and fought him to the ground. They fought till dawn. The man injures Jacob's hip, but Jacob didn't give up. He ended up winning. The man was impressed. He asked Jacob to let him go because dawn is breaking. Jacob told the strange man that he wouldn't let him go unless the man blesses him. Instead of a blessing, the man changed Jacob's name to Israel. He tells Jacob that his new name means one who wrestles with God, meaning he has fought with people and divine beings and has succeeded. When Jacob asked what the man's name was, he was told that he shouldn't ask. Based on that conversation, Jacob believes that the man was actually an angel in disguise. Jacob realizes something important has happened. He names the land Peniel, or the face of God, meaning, as he puts it, I have seen God face to face and my life has been preserved. He then limps home to greet Esau. When Jacob sees Esau, he bows to his feet 7 times to show Esau respect. Esau then runs over to greet him. Jacob then says, to see your face is to see the face of God. Jacob then asked Esau to accept the gifts he had arranged for him. I think of my Torah portion as it relates to my family. The name change that Jacob undergoes makes me think about my grandfather and his experience during the Holocaust. Like Jacob, my grandfather also had his name changed. His struggle was to stay hidden and alive. My grandfather was a hidden child of the Holocaust. His family escaped from Germany and he was hidden in an orphanage in Belgium. The Catholic nuns changed his last name to Duval so that the Nazis wouldn't know that he was Jewish. He learned French and believed that his parents died in the war. Unlike Jacob and Esau, who made up, there is no way to reconcile the horror committed by the Nazis against my family and European Jews. My Torah portion also makes me think about my great-grandfather. He also has a story that involves World War II. His name was changed for different reasons. He was a Montford Point Marine, a gunnery sergeant, and a war hero. The name Montford Point Marine is important because my great-grandfather was one of the first Black Marines and he became an officer. He fought in World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War. I am proud of my family history, but I am also sad about it too. As a biracial Jewish female, it bothers me that people still treat Jews and people of color so poorly in this country. My great-grandfather joined the military during a time when he suffered under segregation. He fought in some of the most horrible battles and still was mistreated. My hope is that Jews and Black people will stop being attacked and oppressed. I think representing Jews should honor their commitment to Hashem and be a light unto nations. This means that they need to take a more active role in the struggle for equal justice. My commitment as a Jewish adult is to follow Jewish law and the 10 Commandments. I will continue to help people who are being mistreated as I have always done. I will not hide my Jewishness and I will not conform to anyone's belief of what a Jew looks like. Just as it is not my job to make people feel comfortable that I am a person of color, it is not my job to make people feel comfortable that I am Jewish. I want to thank all of my religious school teachers and Cantor Kaufman for helping me prepare for this special day. Thank you to my Torah tutor, Miss Jeanette Astro, for all the time we spend social distancing. Rabbi Israel, it really means a lot to me and my family that you are leading services for this important event. I want to thank my mom and dad, Maya and Dylan, for their love and encouragement.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Emma. Our Torah portion this morning, as Emma mentions, comes from Vayishlach, the Torah portion Vayishlach, and it begins with Genesis chapter 32, verse 4. If you have the Plaut Chumash, which looks somewhat like this, the Torah reading begins on page 219. Our blessings before reading of Torah can be found on page 368. Emma, have you found your place there? Okay, do you have your place, Emma?
Yes.
Okay, good. Ta'amod la Torah, Sarah bat Avraham v'Kezia. Maya?
Baruch Adonai Hambrach, Baruch Adonai Hambrach Le'olam Ba'ed, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Ha'amim, V'natan Lanu et Torah, Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Vayishlach Yaakov Malachim lefanav Elisav Achiv Artsa Seir Sere Edom Vayitzav Otam Lemur Kotomerun Ladoni Lesav Ko Amar Abdecha Yaakov Im Lavan Garti Vaychar Ad Ata Vayhili Shor Vachamor Tzom Leved Veshivcha Vashlecha Lehagid Ladoni Limatzochen Beinecha Vayashuvu Amalachim El Yaakov Lemor Banu Elachicha Elisa Bigam Holech Likratecha Verbameo Ish Imo.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Haolam, Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet, V'chayei Olam Natan B'tochein, Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. Thank you. Maya. Ya'amdu la Torah, Avraham ben Mordechai v'Tova, v'Kezia bat Avraham v'Sara. Kenya, Adam?
Baruch hu et Adonai hambarach. Baruch Adonai hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu et Toratu v'natan lanu et Toratu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Vayira Yaakov me'od vayetzer lo vayachatz et ha'am asher ito v'hatzon v'habakar v'hagmalim lishnei machanot. Vayomer im yavo Esav al hamachana hachat vehikahu v'haya hamachana hanishar lifleta. Vayomer Yaakov Elohei Avi Abraham Velohei Avi Yitzchak Adonai Haomer Elai Shuv L'artzecha U'moladetecha V'tiva imach Katonti Mikol hachasadim umikol ha'emet asher asita et abdecha ki makeli avarti et haYordan hazeh v'tahayiti lishnei machanot. Hatzileni na miyad achi miyad Esav ki arei anochi oto pen yavo v'hikani emolanim v'ata amarta heteveti v'imach v'samti yataracha kechol hayam asher lisafer merov.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam natan b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Yesha koach. Thank you. Ta'amod la Torah, Racha bat Avraham v'Kezia habat mitzvah.
Baruch hu et Adonai hambarach.
Baruch Adonai hambarach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch Adonai hambarach le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah. Vayalen sham balayla vayikach min haba v'yado min chalesav achiv izim matayim u'yashim asrim v'chelim matayim v'velim asrim Gemali menikot uvnehem shloshim parot arbaim ufarim asara utnot asrim vayarim asara vayitain v'yadavadav eder levado Vayomer alavadav Ibru lefanai V'revach tasimu ben eder uven eder. Vayetzav et harishon lemor ki yifgashecha Esav achiv ushelcha lemor lemi ata ve'ana telech umi ele lefanecha v'amarta Labdecha Yaakov mincha hi shlucha ladoni lesav v'hine gam hu acharenu. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'chayei olam nata b'tochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Thank you, Emma. That was really wonderful. Thank you. As we finish our Torah lesson portion at this moment of sacredness in our service, we recall all those of our family, our friends, those in our community and the wider community who are not able to be with us this morning through illness or ill health. And we offer up a prayer on their behalf, a prayer for healing, which you can find on page 371 of the prayer book. Please join us.
Misheberach Avotenu Mikor habracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha leavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Please rise now as we redress the Torah. I'd like to invite Maya and Dilla to please do that for us.
Izot HaTorah asher sam Moshe lifnei bnei Yisrael al pi Adonai biyad Moshe. Yalla 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 la yalla yalla la yalla la yalla la yalla la yalla 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 la yalla 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 la yalla la yalla 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 la yalla yalla la yalla la yalla la la yalla yalla la la yalla la la yalla yalla la yalla Yalla la la, yalla la la la, yalla yalla la yalla la, yalla la la, yalla la la la, yalla yalla la yalla yalla la la yalla.
Please be seated. And Maya and Dylan, thank you very much indeed for your help. Our Haftorah this morning comes from the book of Hosea, begins in chapter 11, verse 7, and can be found on page 241 of the Plat Chumash. But before that, our blessings can be before reading of Haftorah can be found on page 372 of the prayer book. Emma?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nviim tovim ratzah v'divrayim anemarim be'emet Baruch atah Adonai Abachel Torah Uvmeshe Abdo Uvisrael Amo Uvinvie Haemet Batzedek V'ami Tiluim Limshuvati Ve'el all Yikra'uhu Yachad Lo Yironim Ech Etencha Ephraim Amagencha Yisrael Ech Etencha Chadma Asimcha Kitzvayim Nepach Alai Livi Yachal Nichmeru Nichumai Lo Eseh Charon Api Lo Ashuv L'Shachet Ephraim Ki El Anochi V'lo Ish V'kirbecha Kadosh V'lo Avo Be'ir Acharei Adonai Yelchu K'aryeh Yishab Kihu Yishab V'yecherdu Vanim Miyam Yecherdu Chitzipor Mimitzrayim Uchyona Meretz Ashur V'hoshavtim al Beitem Ne'um Adonai Zivavuni V'chachash Ephraim U'mirma Beit Yisrael V'Yehuda Rad Im El V'Im Kedoshim Ne'eman Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Tzor kol amim Tzadik b'chol hadorot Hayel hane'eman Haomer v'oseh Hamdaber umkayem Shekol devarav emet b'tzedek Al haTorah Al havodah Al hanvim Val Yom Shabbat Hazeh Shnatalanu Adonai Eloheinu Litushav Lenucha Lechavod Ultifaret Al Hakol Adonai Eloheinu Anachnu Modim Lach Umvarchim Otach Yibarach Shimcha B'fi Kol Chai Tamid L'olam Va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat
Amen.
Emma?